the genuine inquiries by Vidura are very much praised by Maitreya Rishi. He is glorifying the inquiries made by Vidura. So that is what he is saying in this verse. Maitreya uvacha sadhu veera tvaya prishtham. O Veera, O great warrior, sadhu tvaya prishtham, whatever you have inquired is very befitting a devotee. Your inquiries are very much befitting a devotee's inquiry. Why? Because even though you have inquired about how the Lord killed that demon, Hiranyaksha, the first demon, this is all related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are not interested, you have not asked about some mundane warfare, some heroism of some mundane war. You have inquired about Avatar Katham Harehe, how the Lord appeared as Varaha and engaged in war with Hiranyaksha and finally defeated him. So, your inquiries are befitting a devotee because they relate to Avatar Katham Hare, they relate to the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the center. But then, one may wonder that after all it is all warfare, why a devotee should be interested? Devotee can be more interested in other kind of Krishna Katha. Why should he become interested in ghastly warfare? How the demon was being defeated? Or let us say even about Kurukshetra. Why the devotee should be interested in reading about Mahabharata? All these things, somebody may wonder. So, Maitreya Rishi is saying, Yat tvam prachasi, the topics you have inquired, Yat tvam prachasi, specifically, it is very beneficial for Martyanam. It is very, very beneficial for those who are destined to die. Why? Because these chivalrous topics of the Lord, these brave topics of the Lord, they will release such people who are destined to die from the cycle of birth and death. Mrityu pasha vishatanim. Mrityu pasha means from the chain of birth and death. Vishatanim means it becomes a source of liberation. So your inquiries are very great. Your inquiries are very befitting a great devotee. Why? This is not only beneficial for you, it is beneficial for anyone who hears such chivalrous topics of the Lord. Because for those who are destined to die, if they hear these brave and chivalrous topics of the Lord, they will be relieved from the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada in the purport is explaining that even the word which is utilized for Vidura by Maitreya Rishi is Sadhu Veera, devotee, but what kind of devotee? Chivalrous devotee, Veera. Veera means one who is a warrior. So, there are two reasons for this. Prabhupada says, why Maitreya Rishi is pointing out or addressing Vidura as Veera or a warrior. What is the external reason? Anantarupa? What is the external reason? Because he was from a warrior family. He was born in Kuru dynasty. So he is a warrior, he is a Kshatriya. So definitely he is a Veera. Kshatriyas are Veera. They are chivalrous, they are brave. Right? There is another important reason why Vidura is addressed here as Veera. Athuresh? Parthasarthi? Bhagavatam? Yes. He wanted to hear about chivalrous, brave activities of the Lord. And that is why he is called as Veera. So Prabhupada says, the great sage Maitreya addressed Vidura as a warrior, not only because Vidura belonged to the Kuru family, but because he was anxious to hear about the chivalrous activities of the Lord in his incarnations of Varaha and Narsimha. So these inquiries are very much befitting a great devotee of the Lord, because the chivalrous, brave activities of the Lord are different from so-called brave, chivalrous activities of mundane hero, mundane person in mundane warfare. These two are completely different. How it is different, we will try to understand. There is one very beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam where it is stated that how the activities of the Lord are very chivalrous and brave. And such activities should be heard by people. If our ears do not become a source of hearing these chivalrous and brave activities of the Lord, rather, if we fill these ears with mundane activities, which externally may look very brave and chivalrous. Let us say some great hero of this world, we hear about his activities. And we may think, I am also hearing about chivalrous, brave activities. But actually, they are compared in Bhagavatam, even the so-called chivalrous and brave activities of mundane hero or mundane warfare, they are very tiny. Whereas the brave and chivalrous activities of the Lord, if they fall into the ear of a person, they will make a person completely free from any kind of, it will give him an immunity to birth and death. The more we hear about mundane warfare, the mundane bravery, all these kind of activities, we are destined to die. And that is why it is said, Martyanam. Then one may wonder that how it is possible. War actually means death, right? Topics about death can relieve a person from death. It looks very contradictory, isn't it? Topics of war actually is filled with how a person killed and how so many people were killed. So it's a topic of death. So, but hearing the topics of death where the Lord is the center actually can relieve a person who hears about such topic of death Because not only when the Lord is present, the people who are killed, even such people, they become immune to birth and death. When the Lord is present, in the presence of the Lord, when an enemy is killed by the Lord, even such a person becomes liberated from this world. So it's not mundane warfare. It's not like hearing about mundane warfare. These topics of the Lord are different. So that verse, it says, Shukdev Goswami says, Bile bata urukrama vikraman ye na shanvataha karna pute narasya. Bile means it's a hole. Bile bata means it's a snake hole. Urukrama, Uru means great, very great. Krama means activities. So Urukrama means activities of the Lord which are very great, which are very wonderful. So Uru is great, Krama is activities. Great activities performed by the Supreme Lord. That's why he is called Urukrama. And what are these great activities? They are filled with bravery. They are filled with chivalrous. Vikraman. Vikraman means brave activities of the Lord, or chivalrous activities of the Lord. They are called as Vikraman. So Bhagavatam says, anyone who does not hear these great and chivalrous activities of the Lord, na shanvataha karna pute, if one does not give audience to such brave and chivalrous activities of the Lord, bile batta, his ears are as dangerous as snake holes. See, so Prabhupada says, especially in India, in the paddy field, you will find a lot of rats, they create holes. So what do the snake do? The snake, this is called Ajagara Vritti. The snake goes and it takes over the hole which is created by the rat and resides there. And he sits there and simply waits for prey to come there. So is there anybody who would like to put hole in such dangerous holes? Nobody will be interested because it is dangerous. The moment you put your hand in snake hole, it is death personified. It is very dangerous. Similarly, the holes of our ear, if they are not filled with chivalrous and brave, Vikraman, Urukramasya Vikraman, those activities of the Lord, they are as good as occupied by snakes. Our ears will become occupied by mundane topics which are like snake. Why they are compared to snake? Snake means death. These ordinary mundane topics will only result in more and more repeated birth and death. That's why the ear holes are compared to snake holes for people who do not hear chivalrous activities of the Lord. So actually Prabhupada says there in one of the lectures Prabhupada was giving on this verse, Prabhupada says, we have a very responsible task. We have a very responsible task. He says, within their snake holes, within the snake holes of people, because actually people's holes, ear holes, are as good as snake holes. Why? Everybody is only interested in mundane activities. They only want to hear more and more of mundane things. So what is their ear holes? They're all snake holes. So Prabhupada says we have a very responsible task of injecting within their ears the chivalrous activities of the Lord. Otherwise, their ear holes will remain as snake holes. So very loudly we have to propagate Krishna consciousness. Very loudly we have to glorify the Lord so that people will be able to hear the chivalrous activities of the Lord. So, Prabhupada gives an example why the activities of the Lord are called Vikraman. Very great, very brave, very chivalrous. Isn't it? Whereas mundane people, they have no understanding. They accept some so-called hero as chivalrous or brave, and like you will find nowadays I was going to one mall, I had gone to purchase something. There were big t-shirts with signs, DJ. There is some great hero in cricket, some DJ Bravo, some West Indies batsman, and big words. People want to purchase, people want to buy, people want to have, isn't it? Such mundane heroes, such mundane people. So, this is a very important task for the devotees, that the activities of the Lord, they are not like some mundane heroes. They are actually great, they are actually chivalrous. So Prabhupada gives an example that we make some mundane hero adorable and we adore him, we practically glorify him, we practically worship him. I was seeing another interesting one advertisement. Of course, Akshay Patra is using that advertisement as a benefit for prasadam distribution. But there is a big response. You see? So there is, if you do some charity, you get a chance to sit next to great people. So Amitabh Bachchan has also signed that if anybody donates to Akshay Patra this much amount, he gets a chance to sit beside me for the full flight, say 1 hour, 2 hour flight, wherever he is going. So next flight where Amitabh Bachchan will book from say Bangalore to Delhi, 2.5 hours flight, the seat next to him will be booked by any person who donates for Akshay Patra. And a lot of people donate because of that. So of course, Akshay Patra is utilizing that opportunity. But you can imagine the mood of the people, how people are attracted to these mundane so-called heroes. Isn't it? Actually, in their real life, they are not real heroes. That we can see. People who are so much glorifying Amir Khan, all those things, and how they are contradictory in their life. Incredible India. Once upon a time he was saying, incredible India. And now he is saying, intolerant India. So they are not, in their real sense, they are not what they are supposed to be or what they project themselves to be. So we can see they are all mundane people in their actual life, projected as some great heroes, some great personalities, like that. But actually activities of the Lord are not like that. They are actually real heroic activities. When a devotee is adoring the Lord as worshipable Lord, it is not some, mundane hero, mundane heroism. It's actually real great activities. Prabhupada gives that example. Prabhupada says that Ravana was one of the very great demoniac person. Actually, in warfare affairs, he was very great. He was more greater than even the demigods. Why? He had practically captured all the heavenly planets. He had captured all the heavenly planets. So, demigods are considered to be one of the great warriors. But such a demon like Ravana was more greater than even these devatas. And he had made a challenge that why these devatas, why people have to perform some tapasyas, some yagnas in order to go to Svargaloka. I will make one staircase from earth to heaven, and people should be able to go to heaven just by climbing that staircase. You see? So actually in that sense, even in mundane sense, he was a great warrior. But we can see the Supreme Lord came, and just the Lord showed him. He was in the forest. He was not having the whole, the Sena, the military of Ayodhya was not with him. And just by utilizing some animals, the Sena of an animal, monkeys with him, and he was not having a big, engineers with him, or he did not go in a fly plane to Lanka. Just with some stones, he made a bridge and they crossed over to Lanka. And even such a great demon who had captured all the devatas, the Lord fought with him and killed him. This is a brave activity of the Lord. And even when the Lord was crossing over, Prabhupada explains that how even though the Lord appeared, more in the form of showing to the people about ideal human being, but the time came when the Lord also showed his superhuman activities. When the ocean was not giving way to the Lord became very angry. And Bhagavatam explains, when the Lord was angry, his eyes were like molten copper. Just when the metal becomes molten, it is red hot. So when the Lord glanced like that towards the ocean, actually the ocean became heated. You see? Is there a hero in this world who can look at one glass of water and make it boil? These are superhuman activities, not mundane activities. These are real brave activities of the Lord, we can see. And Prabhupada says, Krishna was the real superhero. Every queen the Lord won was by fighting war. Everywhere, whether it was with Jarasandha, it was with Shishupala, isn't it? Whether it was kidnapping Rukmini or Satyabhama, all the queens of Krishna were with such chivalrous activities. Even in mundane sense, if you see, all filled with chivalrous activities of the Lord. And then Prabhupada gives an example. Prabhupada says, we don't accept a God, so-called God, proclaimed by asses, dogs, hogs and camels. We accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is accepted by the Vedic literature, who is accepted by the great personalities like Vedavyasa, Arjuna, Narada, Asita, all these personalities. And then Prabhupada gives an example. And Krishna showed that he is Bhagavan Swayam. At the age of around 6 to 7, the Lord lifted continuously for 7 days. Continuously for 7 days the Lord lifted Govardhan hill. And Prabhupada says, for an ordinary man, even to maintain one wife is so difficult. Krishna was maintaining 16,000 queens. And not that every queen had to wait. So Prabhupada says these are all chivalrous activities, brave activities of the Lord. No mundane man can copy them. These are actually chivalrous activities of the Lord. So, the idea is to understand that these brave, these chivalrous activities of the Lord should be injected in the ears of people Otherwise, their ears will remain as snake holes. Very dangerous. Because the more people hear mundane topics, the more people read this so-called Gramya Katha, actually they are moving more and more towards repeated cycle of birth and death. Of course, for a devotee who is trained in Krishna consciousness, he knows how to turn even a mundane topic into Krishna consciousness. For a pure devotee, even when he is walking, there is nothing mundane. Because a pure devotee sees everything from the eyes of scriptures. His eyes are anointed with love of God. And when a person sees anything from those eyes, he sees everything connected to the Lord. And that is how we have to train up. Nothing is mundane in the world if it is utilized in the service of the Lord. Everything is mundane in the world if it is utilized for sense gratification. This is what we should understand. Science is also not mundane. If the science is utilized in the service of the Lord, it becomes spiritualized. If politics is utilized in the service of the Lord, that also becomes spiritualized. It remains mundane if it is utilized for sense gratification. So Prabhupada showed the art, practically showed the art, how to utilize everything in the service of the Lord. Then it is no more mundane, it is spiritualized. So once, there is a very beautiful anecdote of Prabhupada when he was in San Francisco, and devotees were just amazed to see how even seemingly mundane thing, even though devotees were seeing everything from mundane eyes, but Prabhupada was seeing everything from transcendental vision. So once, there is a park very famous park in San Francisco, Golden Gate Park. There's a very big lake there, Stove Lake. So these American devotees, they wanted to showcase to Prabhupada the kind of development, the kind of beauty, scenic beauty, natural beauty which is present in this park, which is adorned by many poets and many people. They come there for going around, seeing the beautiful sceneries, all those things. So actually in their eyes, this was what they wanted to showcase, their country's, this beautiful park which was very famous at that time. So they took Prabhupada around the lake, they took Prabhupada over a bridge, and there was some forest also. It's a huge park. Some forest, enclosed paths, small rivulets were created, small rivers kind of things were created, hoping to please Prabhupada with scenic beauty, natural beauty. They were taking Prabhupada around. So then Prabhupada would go, he would stop near a tree and ask the devotees, what is this tree? Which is this tree? And they would be practically answerless. They had no answer. What tree is this? Then he will stop at another flower. What flower is this? And many of them would not be able to answer. And then Prabhupada, he pointed out, when he was, with his cane he pointed out, and he said, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you can see there, Lord Chaitanya is welcomed in Vrindavan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed through the forest of Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, all the plants, the trees and creepers, they were all delighted to see the Lord. They were delighted to see the Lord, and they rejoiced in the presence of the Lord. And then Prabhupada said, the life in spiritual world everything is fully Krishna conscious. So by the presence of the Lord, all of them regained their spiritual consciousness. The animals, the plants, the trees, the creepers, everyone rejoiced in the presence of the Supreme Lord when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walked through the forest of Vrindavan. So then, devotees asked, so Prabhupada, are these trees also conscious? So they pointed to some trees. Are these trees also conscious? So Prabhupada says, oh yes, spirit soul is there inside all these things. But their consciousness is temporarily arrested by the body they have. Their perception is limited. Their consciousness has become limited. So how Prabhupada, even just walking in that garden, even that in that park, how Prabhupada was able to inject Krishna consciousness in his disciples. Just with seemingly mundane things, he was able to inject Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada walked further. So then, it was just the sun had come out, but somehow it was little cloudy. Sometimes it was sun and sometimes the cloud was going. And then Prabhupada pointed out towards the sun. And he made another very important observation. So then Prabhupada said, those who want to see God, they must have qualification to see God. And then he pointed out to the sky and he said they must be purified. Just like the cloud is now covering the sun. And they may say, seeing the cloud, seeing the sky, they may say sun is not there. Isn't it? But if they remove the cloud, if they remove that ignorance, they can see the cloud. So similarly Prabhupada said, our vision must be cleared, then we will be able to see the Lord. So Prabhupada pointed out this. And then devotees took Prabhupada towards more, scenic beauty, and they came across some swans in the lake. Swans were gliding down, swimming in the lake nicely. In rows together you will find swans are swimming. And then Prabhupada pointed out. Prabhupada said, Bhagavatam, it compares the devotees to the swans. And the literatures about Krishna are so clear and purified. They are like the clear lakes. Topics about Krishna are like the lakes, clear lake. And devotees are like the swan. They take pleasure diving in that topics, swimming in that topic. They take pleasure. And then Prabhupada said, crows will not take pleasure here. Mundane people who have interest in mundane topics, they are compared to crows. They will not take pleasure where swans are taking pleasure. They will take pleasure in garbage. They will not come to a clean lake, clean place. They have no interest. They will be more interested in garbage. Not only they are interested, they will invite all their friends to that garbage. You will see sometime. Dead body is there. One crow will not be there. He will shout like anything and all other crows will also. All dirty places. It's a very beautiful analogy Prabhupada gave. And then, when Prabhupada was walking, this was a very special morning walk. Prabhupada, every single thing Prabhupada pointed out. There were just like sometimes we create in our garden also we create path with pebbles. It looks, beautiful. A lot of pebbles are there. So it looks more natural. So such kind of path was there. And then Prabhupada pointed out, look at the pebbles. As many pebbles are there which you cannot count. Like that there are millions of universes. You cannot count. You see? And there, in those millions of universes, there are millions and millions of living entities in these universes. So Prabhupada pointed out. And then they took Prabhupada back, the time was over. And next day when the devotees came to know that Prabhupada is giving such transcendental, commentary on even so-called mundane things, lot more devotees joined to hear such, transcendental explanations from Prabhupada. Then, next day when the devotees came, some ducks were there. And, they had come out of the pond and they were all walking near the devotees. So, some of the devotees went there and they wanted to shoo away the ducks, that you're disturbing Swamiji, you're disturbing the devotees. So then Prabhupada said quietly that we are thinking they are disturbing us and they are thinking we are disturbing them. That's why they are shouting. We are thinking, isn't it? And then after that Prabhupada stopped beneath one tree where a lot of stools were lying of trees. Sometimes you will find that underneath some tree you will find a lot of that stool of the birds will be lying there. So then Prabhupada asked the devotees a question. You find a lot of stool here. What does this indicate? So they were expecting maybe Prabhupada wants to know what is the frequency of the bird passing stool or something like that. So somebody started answering. Isn't it, all those things? And still then Prabhupada looked to others. They were all silent. Nobody was able to answer. So Prabhupada said, this shows even the birds are attached. Even the birds are attached. That means if the stool is lying here from many days, it shows these birds have been coming to this tree very often and they are also attached. And that's how they are passing stool here. So even with such, mundane things, Prabhupada was able to inject Krishna consciousness in his disciples. Then, after some time, when they were walking across, then they walked on the road from the lake and more toward another garden they wanted to take Prabhupada. Then he came across some old people playing checkers. So then Prabhupada, in a very, very grave voice, Prabhupada said, old people in your country, they do not know how to spend their time. They're playing like children, wasting their last days, which should be actually meant for developing Krishna consciousness. They have such a great advantage. Their children are grown up, all those responsibilities are over. But in spite of that, they waste their time like this, playing like children. And instead of spending their natural time for cultivation, they get some cats or dog. Instead of serving God, they serve dog. It is most unfortunate. They will not listen. Their ways are set. Therefore, we are speaking to the youth who are searching. These people, they have already set their mind. This is how they want to waste their life. They cannot learn Krishna consciousness. So, with that, Prabhupada wanted to point out that we should be preaching more and more to the people who are youth who can take up. Of course, this does not mean that old people cannot understand. If somebody is serious in any stage of life, one can take to Krishna consciousness. But generally, we find Krishna consciousness is a learning. And generally, we don't find old people going to the school because they cannot learn. young people are sent to the school because they can learn. So that is the idea. And then when they were passing towards the road, one boy, there was a sloping green lawn. So one boy pointed out, Prabhupada, this is a famous hippie hill. So in the early mornings or in the night, hippies would come and they will be just lying there in that lawn like that. So then Prabhupada advised the boy, you should do them a favor. Every day you should come and hold kirtan here. So even to such people who are drug addicts or drunkards, hippies, Prabhupada said you should do them a favor, you should hold kirtan. So we can see that actually in the eyes of a pure devotee, nothing is mundane. And that is the science we have to learn, how to inject Krishna conscious topics in the ears of the people. And that will make them completely free from this cycle of birth and death. So that is the term which is being used for people here. Yatvam prachasi martyanam mrityupasha vishatanim. There's these questions which have been inquired by you are very, very beneficial to Martyana, for the people who are subject to death, who are destined to die. Because such topics, when they are injected in their ears, when they will hear these topics of the Lord, these brave, chivalrous topics of the Lord, they will be freed from Mrityu Pasha, they will be freed from the cycle of birth and death. So we'll stop with this. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.